least one historical connection between Bohemia and Baden. In 1690, Margrave Ludwig Wilhelm of Baden of Rastatt, who was very impoverished after wars with Louis XIV, married Duchess Františka Sibylla Augusta from Sachsen-Lauenburg. She lived in Bohemia at that time, and she had a lot of property. So that this marriage was fine according to historical resources, and Františka Sibylla brought to Baden also a part of her property, so that perhaps also a sort of economic cooperation happened even at that time without the European Union institutions. They had 9 children, but only 2 of them survived childhood, so that they later on can develop and enrich this kingdom, so to say. So that, of course, in Europe we have we enjoyed a lot of connections like that. But thanks to the European Union, I would say it's now perhaps more organized than just depending on relationship. Okay, it's Thursday afternoon, late afternoon, so I am happy that organizers gave you my paper in written. I hope that you all have it, so that I will have the chance to be relatively short, even if as a university professor I have some bad habits in that respect. So please tell me if I am not so short as I would like to be. Tell me, please. My view will come from my own disciplinary orientation, which is strategic governance and public policy analysis and design. So this is the perspective I would like to, in a way, interpret what I was able to grasp from various studies that I had at my disposal when preparing for this presentation. I will start shortly with the Czech Republic's history. What I would like definitely to focus on is value embedment of TA. I guess this is something relevant, important, and might bring perhaps another perspective to our way of understanding of those difficult and complex processes. And I will go on with enumerating potentials and barriers for TA, and I will apply this list, of course temporary list of potentials and barriers to countries of your or our nowadays research interest. The Czech Republic has a relatively rich history of studying the relationship between technologies, society, economics, and political life. At the end of the 60s, when we used to be Czechoslovakia, not only the Czech Republic as nowadays, Radovan Richta published a book called Civilization at the Crossroads, Social and Human Implications of the Scientific and Technological Revolution. It was a serious attempt to understand changes in societies at that time, and along with two other studies, one that was written by a team of Pavel Machonin, and its title was Československá společnost, the Czechoslovak Society, and another seminal book written by political scientists that covered potential changes of a political system. These three books were an ideological platform for the Prague Spring of '68. After invasion of Soviets to Czechoslovakia in '68, this tradition was forcefully interrupted, even if Radovan Richta survived, but he didn't do anything influential after that. Some other scholars were forced to leave academia, as you probably know, or you can imagine. So that only after '89 the tradition started to be more vivid again, and I would like to mention some names. Professor Ladislav Tondl, Professor Karel Miller. We have been speaking about a small unit at the Czech Academy of Sciences where Adolf Filáček and other colleagues try to understand better the role of science in society and how society influences science and scientific discoveries. If I have a look at the institutional situation, I would say that Lenka Hebáková and myself, we are now two representatives of two institutions that deal with issues that are relevant for technology assessment. Lenka's Technology Center more from the point of view of technologies and applied science. Our center more from the broader perspective of social, economic and political context of what is happening there. Unfortunately, there is a sort of not split, but simply until now we met at a joint project only scarcely, only on a few occasions, and I see it as a handicap, at least for my center, that to understand better the role of technologies in societal development might bring better outcomes to our center. I would like, especially in the paper here, there is not time enough to discuss it in more detail, but the tradition of TA, as was covered today, since morning sessions until recently, is I would put it in a simplistic way, I am sorry, to understand how technology may influence society. Our approach, our understanding of needs of contemporary societies tries to have maybe complementary, maybe different view. What society needs in order to cover needs of the population using technologies. And it's a different question. I guess that neither this or that question is correct. In our effort, we were always trying to cover both sides of this relationship. One example for many, you know that handicapped persons now may make a new and enormous profit from new electronic devices, which was not true in the past. So new technologies may update the quality of life of millions of inhabitants. And this is something that in our perspective should be nurtured. And of course, this does not exclude another view, vice versa view. We have new technology, let's start to study in a systematic way what might be the impact of this technology to human lives, to environment, to enhancing our economies. So that one example of our approach toward comprehensive societal forward studies is to apply the criterion of quality and sustainability of life. This is in explicit opposition to more traditional approach where economic growth is taken as a prior criterion for societal development, especially if it is measured by the growth of gross domestic product. Ex-President Sarkozy initiated the work of prominent scholars led by Professor Stiglitz, and they published 2 years ago a famous report which was the reaction to the global financial crisis of 2007, and one of important conclusions of that report was that this simplistic understanding of needs of our societies, economic growth measured by GDP, was one of the reasons of the global financial crisis. Not the most important, but one of factors that also contributed to this crisis which we still are about to face. So that in our writings, this criterion is described in more detail. We are trying also to make it as much as evidence-based as possible, of course, but it also needs forecasting of the development of indicators that cover these 4 pillars of quality and sustainability of life. Now, a couple of sentences on potentials for technology assessment. It's everyday business for you, so I will not be very extensive in that respect. But I wanted to take some important pieces of knowledge from country reports that you prepared for this session. What is very important is to have qualified decision makers. This is especially important, it's important elsewhere, but especially important in our part of the world where politicians simply, in many respects, are not up to the demands they should cover. And it also requires nurturing a relationship between politicians and experts. But this relationship could not be nurtured if politicians simply don't think that they need experts for their decision making. Another important context is forecasting and strategic studies. In a way, not always, but in many cases, TA is a part of strategic governance. TA may bring important changes in terms of structure, in terms of operation of various institutions. So if we want to look at the problems of contemporary societies from the point of view of societal needs, we need a holistic approach. We need a long-term view on what might happen in the future, and this is not possible without such stream of studies. In other words, I believe that it's mutually supportive. In societies where TA is operating at a reasonable level, there is higher probability that also comprehensive forecasting activities will flourish, and vice versa. So these are two activities that in my view are mutually dependent and supporting each other. We have been speaking about civic and professional engagement, of course. Another issue is communication skills. Also, you know what I am speaking about. I am sure simply scientists it's a typical experience when you go to see your general practitioner. He or she will start with a couple of Latin words you don't understand at all. And in order to push TA forward in practice, there is a skill of translation that is in my view necessary. And last but not least, experience sharing, and that's why we all are here today. That's great. Barriers, qualification of decision makers. In Georgia, in the United States, it's the state when you succeed in election and you became a legislator, you have to go to be trained at the university before you start your activities as a legislator. I am sure that all countries, especially Central and Eastern European countries, we are studying, would very much profit from such an option. Level of political culture. Mr. Saretsky spoke about that, and I 100% agree with him that this is a factor that if there is a low level of political culture, this would very much inhibit enterprise. State capture. Charles Lindblom wrote his seminal book on politics and markets 40 years ago, but it's still very relevant, even more relevant than when he described how strong economic interest in the United States influenced legislation and biased the outcomes of legislation by influencing political class. By the way, in my country, now the main issue of political debate is corruption. This is something that is now at the top of public attention, and it goes as high as to individual legislators at the central level. As for inadequate system of management, I would just mention a lacking element of this system in many countries, and this is the strategic dimension of governance. Without specific institutions that would care about strategic analysis, forecasting, and suggestion for decision making, your decision making system and approach would be definitely myopic. And inhibition of civic engagement. This is something that is a part of the picture nowadays, at least in my country, and I believe that we are not the exception, that due to economic stresses, simply the population is not much prepared to be engaged in general issues of public life, including such soft and difficult to grasp issues such as technologies and their impact on society. Now, I would like to present you some outcomes, very preliminary outcomes of my secondary analysis of 7 case studies. I would suggest to discuss it, as it's of course a qualitative. I am not a specialist in this field, so the final picture after discussion might be very different. But there are several conclusions. First, what seems to be without any hesitation is that sharing experience is a big potential in this field of activities. I can prove it by quotations from each country report. There is on the other hand, there is one criterion where you cannot see any pluses, and this is qualification of decision makers. Once again, without that, simply potentials for TA will be much lower. Last month, I participated in a very nice conference called Science and Public in Decision Making, and it was organized by young sociologists in Prague. It was a national conference, and I was very much and nicely surprised how the young generation of analysts and scholars started to think about their role, about role of the public, and how to make both expert and public views compatible and useful for decision makers. So at least that's why I put this plus in the case of the Czech Republic for civic and professional engagement. Now, what are barriers? There is another overall negative or barrier that is more or less universal, perhaps in all countries, with certain hesitation in Wallonia, but in Wallonia it's a special case that has other obstacles different from those that are typical for Central and Eastern European countries. But inadequate system of management is a serious barrier for TA. Otherwise, the picture is mixed. There are some countries that are slightly better off. There are some countries that are slightly worse off. Wallonia, apart from system of management, is the best. No doubt about that. That is also true for other criteria, for remaining 4 barriers. But and it's very rough, I am sorry about that, but if you have a look at pluses and at minuses, it's clearer that we have much less pluses than minuses. We have 14 pluses and we have 22 minuses. I wouldn't like you to be in a bad mood before this dinner. but I guess that in a Chinese, the crisis, and this is a sort of a crisis, means two means. One is a challenge. Challenge is a the challenge is the crisis and opportunity at the same time. So that I would say that we should take it as the opportunity, at least for our mutual enlightenment. But it would be too little. I guess that at the end of the day we all believe that we will be able also to push common affairs or public affairs in our countries forward. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for this perspective on the